1431, Florence, Italy. Pope Eugene IV needs money, urgently. He is fighting a war he cannot afford, maintaining a court he cannot fund, and managing a religious institution that spans the entire Western world, all without a reliable banking partner. He picks up his pen and writes to one man. Not an emperor, not a king, not a general, a banker. Giovanni de Medici, founder of the Medici Bank, the institution that has quietly become the financial backbone of the Catholic Church, the Republic of Florence, and half the royal courts in Europe. The Pope's letter is essentially an application. He needs the Medici. He knows it, they both know it. Within a generation, the Medici family will have placed two of their own relatives on the papal throne. They will have funded the Sistine Chapel, Brunelleschi's Dome, Michelangelo's David, and Leonardo da Vinci's earliest commissions. They will have invented the financial instruments the entire modern world runs on. And they will have done all of it, not with armies, not with territory, not with noble birth, but with a banking system so sophisticated that governments, popes, and kings had no choice but to depend on them. This is the Medici Wealth Code, and it starts with one rule that changed the world. The Medici were not ancient nobility. They were new money, merchants who had risen through Florence's wool and banking trades over several generations in Europe, collecting tithes, managing donations, paying clergy, funding crusades, and maintaining an administrative apparatus that spanned the entire continent. Whoever became the church's banker would become the most connected financial institution in the world. Giovanni cultivated that relationship carefully. By 1413, the Medici Bank had been appointed the official banker of the papacy. Every papal financial transaction, every tithe collected, every indulgence sold, every payment to every bishop in every country flowed through Medici accounts. The papal relationship gave the Medici access to financial flows from England to the Middle East. It gave them a network of contacts in every royal court in Europe. And it gave them something priceless: legitimacy. A bank that managed the Pope's money was a bank every nobleman, every merchant, every king felt safe depositing with. The first rule of the Medici Wealth Code: become the banker of the most powerful institution in your world. Their credibility becomes your credibility. Their network becomes your network. Their transactions become your revenue. The Medici's greatest financial innovation was the perfection of the letter of credit and the network that made it work. Before the Medici, international commerce was physically dangerous. Merchants traveling from Florence to London to buy wool had to carry gold coins, heavy, conspicuous, and an invitation to robbery. Banks existed, but operated locally. There was no trusted international financial infrastructure. The Medici changed this by establishing branch offices in every major European commercial city: London, Bruges, Geneva, Venice, Rome, Naples, Avignon. These branches operated as a coordinated network under unified Medici management. A Florentine merchant could now deposit gold in Florence, receive a letter of credit, essentially a certified Medici banknote, and travel to London, where he could exchange that letter for local currency at the Medici London branch. No physical gold transport, no robbery risk, no currency uncertainty. For the first time in European history, money could move faster than the people carrying it. The Medici charged fees for this service. They made money on every exchange. They held deposits, earning interest. They made loans to merchants, nobles, and governments. Every node in their network generated revenue, and the network itself made every node more valuable. The second rule: build the infrastructure that makes commerce possible, and every commercial transaction pays you a fee. You don't need to trade in goods, you need to trade in the movement of money itself. Here is the Medici decision that most confuses historians, and that most people get completely wrong. Why did the Medici spend enormous sums funding artists, sculptors, architects, and philosophers? Brunelleschi's Dome, Ghiberti's baptistry doors, Donatello's sculptures, Botticelli's paintings, Michelangelo's earliest commissions, Leonardo da Vinci's patronage, all funded by Medici money. Was this generosity? Cultural passion? Civic pride? It was the most sophisticated branding operation in human history. In 15th century Florence, artistic patronage was the primary mechanism through which wealthy families communicated their power, legitimacy, and divine favor to the public, to the church, and to rival families. The more magnificent the art you commissioned, the more powerful you were perceived to be. The Medici understood that perception of power is power, especially for a family of bankers who had no noble title, no military force, and no hereditary claim to authority. Every fresco that bore the Medici name, every building they funded, every artist who flourished under their patronage and praised them publicly, each one was an advertisement directed at popes, kings, rival families, and the Florentine public simultaneously. And unlike military expenditure, which generated nothing lasting, artistic patronage generated something that appreciated in value indefinitely. The art the Medici funded is worth more today than it was when they paid for it. Their investment in beauty paid returns for 600 years. The third rule: invest in things that appreciate over time and communicate power simultaneously. The Medici bought art. It told the world they were untouchable. It still does.
Giovanni de Medici's son, Cosimo de Medici, known as Cosimo the Elder, took the family's financial power and converted it systematically into political power. Florence was nominally a republic, governed by elected councils and committees. Cosimo never held official power for most of his life. He was a private citizen, a banker, a patron. He was also the most powerful man in Florence, and everyone knew it. His mechanism was simple and devastating. He lent money to every family, every faction, and every political figure in Florence who needed it, which was almost everyone. And he maintained meticulous records of every loan. When political decisions needed to be made, Cosimo didn't attend the meeting with bodyguards. He sent a message reminding the relevant parties of what they owed. No threats, no violence, just accounting. The debtors voted the right way. Florence was governed from behind the scenes by a man sitting in a bank. When Cosimo was briefly exiled by rival families in 1433, they had temporarily outmaneuvered him politically. Florence's economy immediately began to struggle. His banking network was so embedded in the city's commerce that his absence was financially catastrophic. Within a year, he was recalled. His rivals were exiled instead. The fourth rule: make yourself so financially essential that removing you is more dangerous than keeping you. Cosimo's exile lasted 1 year because Florence couldn't function without his bank. That is the most durable kind of power. The Medici Bank reached its peak under Lorenzo the Magnificent in the 1470s and 1480s, and then collapsed with extraordinary speed. The causes were structural. The bank had made enormous loans to Edward IV of England and Charles the Bold of Burgundy, neither of whom repaid. The London and Bruges branches were effectively destroyed by these bad debts. Lorenzo himself was more interested in art, philosophy, and politics than in banking. He withdrew attention from the bank's operations. Managers in branch offices began making decisions that served their personal interests over the bank's. The papal relationship, the original source of Medici power, was severed in 1478 after the Pazzi conspiracy, a rival family's assassination attempt on Lorenzo that killed his brother, Giuliano. Pope Sixtus IV, who had backed the Pazzi, excommunicated Lorenzo and placed Florence under interdict. By 1494, just 4 years after Lorenzo's death, the Medici were expelled from Florence, and their bank effectively ceased to exist. The fifth rule, and the warning: the systems that build wealth require constant maintenance. Lorenzo the Magnificent neglected the bank that made the Medici great. Within a generation of his neglect, it was gone. No wealth system survives on autopilot. The Medici family did not disappear with the bank. They reinvented themselves. Exiled in 1494, back in power by 1512. Exiled again, back again. 2 family members, Leo X and Clement VII, became pope. Catherine de Medici became Queen of France. Marie de Medici became Queen of France again a generation later. The family that started as wool merchants and bankers became the most persistent dynasty in European history, not through military force, but through financial intelligence,
political adaptability, and the willingness to reinvest, reposition, and rebuild after every collapse. Their bank is gone, but double-entry bookkeeping, which they perfected, runs every company on Earth. The letter of credit, which they mastered, is the ancestor of every wire transfer, every credit card, every international payment system. The Medici are gone. Their systems are everywhere. And in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, built by a later Medici to house the family art collection, hangs the greatest concentration of Renaissance masterpieces on Earth. Their return on 600-year-old investments, displayed for 5 million visitors per year.